Have you ever looked at your blood pressure reading and felt relieved because the number was lower than before? What if I told you that after age 60, a blood pressure that's too low could sometimes be just as concerning as one that's too high? For years, millions of people were told the same thing: lower blood pressure is always better. But one of the most important medical studies ever conducted revealed something that many people never heard about. And what doctors learned from that research may completely change how you think about your own blood pressure. Because after 60, the rules begin to change. The aging body doesn't respond to blood pressure the same way it did at 30 or even 50. In fact, the blood pressure target that helps one person stay healthy could potentially create problems for someone else. So what number should you actually aim for? Could your current blood pressure be lower than it needs to be? And why are more doctors now paying attention to things like dizziness, balance, falls, circulation, and medication side effects instead of focusing on a single number alone? The answer may surprise you. And before you make any assumptions about your own blood pressure, there are several things you need to know. In today's video, we'll uncover what modern research really says about blood pressure after 60, including the landmark study that changed medical guidelines, the hidden risks many older adults never hear about, and the blood pressure targets that many geriatric specialists consider most important today. Stay with us, because one small detail near the end of this video could completely change the conversation you have with your doctor at your next appointment.
One of the most influential blood pressure studies ever conducted was the SPRINT trial. SPRINT stands for Systolic Blood Pressure Intervention Trial, and even years after its publication, researchers and healthcare professionals continue to discuss its findings. The goal of the study was straightforward, but extremely important. Researchers wanted to answer a question that had been debated for decades: would lowering systolic blood pressure more aggressively than traditional recommendations reduce the risk of heart attacks, strokes, heart failure, and premature death? To find out, more than 9,000 adults from across the United States participated in the study. Most participants were considered to be at elevated risk for cardiovascular disease. Many were older adults. In fact, a significant portion of the participants were age 75 and older. This made the study particularly relevant to discussions about blood pressure management later in life. Participants were randomly assigned to one of two treatment groups. The first group followed what was considered the standard approach at the time, with a target systolic blood pressure below 140 millimeters of mercury. The second group followed a much more intensive strategy, aiming for a systolic pressure below 120. Researchers then followed the participants over several years, carefully tracking major cardiovascular events and overall survival. When the results were analyzed, they attracted enormous attention throughout the medical community. The intensive treatment group experienced fewer serious cardiovascular events, including heart failure and other major complications. Researchers also observed a lower risk of death from all causes compared with the standard treatment group. The findings were considered so significant that the trial was stopped earlier than originally planned. Why? Because the benefits appeared strong enough that researchers believed the information should be shared with the medical community as soon as possible. Not surprisingly, the results quickly made headlines around the world. Many reports focused on one simple message: lower blood pressure appears to be better. And while that conclusion contained some truth, it did not tell the entire story. There were important details that often received far less attention. First, the study did not include everyone. People with diabetes were excluded. Individuals with certain medical conditions were excluded, and not every older adult would have qualified to participate. Second, participants were monitored very closely throughout the trial. Their medications were adjusted by healthcare professionals. Their blood pressure was measured using standardized methods, and any side effects or complications were carefully tracked. This level of monitoring is very different from what many people experience in everyday life. As a result, the findings cannot automatically be applied to every person over the age of 60. The study did not prove that everyone should immediately try to reduce their systolic blood pressure below 120. Instead, it demonstrated that carefully selected individuals may benefit from more intensive blood pressure management when it is done under appropriate medical supervision. Perhaps the most important lesson from SPRINT is not a specific number. It is the idea that blood pressure treatment should be personalized. Two people may have the exact same blood pressure reading, yet require very different treatment approaches. One person may tolerate lower blood pressure extremely well. Another may develop dizziness, fatigue, or balance problems if blood pressure is reduced too aggressively. That is why modern healthcare providers often look beyond the numbers alone. They also consider a person's overall health, medications, physical function, risk of falling, and quality of life.
And these considerations become increasingly important as we grow older. Because after age 60, successful blood pressure management is not simply about achieving the lowest possible reading, it is about finding the safest and most effective balance for the individual.
Many people assume that blood pressure behaves the same way throughout life. But aging changes the cardiovascular system in several important ways. When we are younger, our arteries are generally more flexible. They expand and contract easily with each heartbeat. Over time, those arteries gradually become stiffer. This process is a normal part of aging. As artery stiffness increases, the heart must pump against greater resistance. As a result, systolic blood pressure often rises. Meanwhile, diastolic pressure may remain stable or sometimes even decrease. This creates a blood pressure pattern that is extremely common among older adults, a higher top number and a normal or lower bottom number. Understanding this age-related change helps explain why blood pressure management after age 60 is often more complex than many people realize. Doctors are not simply treating a number, they're treating an aging cardiovascular system.
One of the most common forms of high blood pressure in older adults is called isolated systolic hypertension. This occurs when the systolic pressure is elevated while the diastolic pressure remains within a normal range. For example, a blood pressure reading of 150/75. Many people focus only on the bottom number and assume everything is fine. But isolated systolic hypertension is important because it has been associated with an increased risk of stroke, heart disease, heart failure, and other cardiovascular complications. The primary driver is often arterial stiffness. The aging arteries lose some of their ability to absorb pressure from each heartbeat. This causes systolic pressure to climb higher. Because isolated systolic hypertension is so common after age 60, it has become one of the major focuses of modern blood pressure management. But there is another important factor that often receives less attention, and that brings us to something known as the J-curve phenomenon.
Most people understand that very high blood pressure can be dangerous, but fewer people realize that blood pressure can sometimes become too low as well. Researchers have observed what is known as the J-curve phenomenon. The idea is relatively simple. Risk tends to increase when blood pressure is very high, but risk may also increase when certain blood pressure measurements become excessively low. This is particularly important when discussing diastolic pressure. Why? Because the heart receives much of its own blood supply during the diastolic phase. If diastolic pressure falls too low, blood flow to the heart muscle may be reduced in some individuals. This does not mean lower blood pressure is always harmful, far from it. For many people, blood pressure reduction provides substantial benefits. However, it highlights an important reality. The goal is not simply to chase the lowest possible number. The goal is to find the safest and most effective range for the individual patient. That balance becomes especially important in older adults, and one reason is the risk of something called orthostatic hypotension.
Imagine standing up from a chair and suddenly feeling dizzy. Your vision becomes blurry. You feel weak or unsteady. For some older adults, this experience happens regularly. The condition is called orthostatic hypotension. It refers to a drop in blood pressure that occurs after standing. Normally, the body quickly adjusts blood flow when we change position, but aging, certain medications, dehydration, and other medical conditions can interfere with this response. When that happens, blood pressure may temporarily fall. The result can include lightheadedness, dizziness, weakness, loss of balance, and sometimes falls. Falls are a major concern among older adults. They can lead to serious injuries and loss of independence. This is one reason why healthcare providers often pay close attention to symptoms, not just blood pressure readings. A blood pressure value that appears acceptable on paper may not tell the entire story if a person experiences dizziness every time they stand. That is why symptom monitoring remains such an important part of blood pressure management after age 60.
This is the question many people want answered. What is the real ideal blood pressure after the age of 60? And the honest answer may surprise you, because despite what many people have heard over the years, there is no single blood pressure number that is perfect for every older adult. In the past, blood pressure treatment was often discussed in terms of universal targets. The assumption was that if everyone could simply reach a specific number, the problem would be solved. But modern research has revealed a much more complex reality. As people age, their bodies become increasingly unique. Two individuals may be the same age, have similar blood pressure readings, and yet have very different health needs. That is why modern geriatric medicine places growing emphasis on individualized care. Rather than focusing exclusively on a blood pressure number, healthcare providers often consider the whole person. They may consider factors such as overall health, kidney function, heart disease history, current medications, physical activity level, frailty, balance, risk of falls, and personal treatment goals. For example, an active and healthy 65-year-old may tolerate a lower blood pressure target quite well. Meanwhile, an 85-year-old who experiences dizziness or balance problems may require a different approach. In that situation, pursuing a lower number at all costs may not necessarily improve quality of life. In fact, it could potentially create new challenges. This is one reason why blood pressure management becomes increasingly personalized later in life. Healthcare providers are often trying to balance multiple goals at the same time. They want to reduce the risk of heart attacks, strokes, heart failure, and other cardiovascular complications, but they also want to preserve mobility, maintain independence, support healthy circulation, and reduce the likelihood of falls or medication-related side effects. For some individuals, a lower blood pressure target may provide significant benefits. For others, a more moderate target may offer a better balance between effectiveness and safety. The key point is that treatment decisions should be based on the individual's overall health picture, not just a single reading on a blood pressure monitor. What matters most is achieving blood pressure control while maintaining good circulation, stable mobility, mental alertness, physical function, and the ability to comfortably perform daily activities. Because ultimately, the purpose of blood pressure treatment is not simply to improve a number on a chart. The purpose is to help people live longer, healthier, and more independent lives. In other words, the ideal blood pressure after 60 is not necessarily the lowest number possible. It is the blood pressure range that helps support long-term cardiovascular health while minimizing unnecessary risks and preserving overall well-being. And that is a far more personalized answer than many people expect when they first ask the question. But according to much of today's research, it is also the answer that makes the most sense.
If you are over 60, there are several practical steps you can take before discussing blood pressure with your healthcare provider. These simple preparations may help provide a more complete picture of your cardiovascular health and can make your appointment more productive. First, keep a home blood pressure log. Many people rely on a single blood pressure reading taken during a doctor's visit, but blood pressure naturally changes throughout the day. It can be affected by stress, physical activity, sleep quality, caffeine, and even the anxiety some people feel during medical appointments. That's why multiple readings collected over days or weeks are often far more informative than a single measurement. A consistent record can help your healthcare provider identify patterns that might otherwise be missed. Second, write down any symptoms you experience. This step is often overlooked, but it can be extremely important. Make note of episodes of dizziness, lightheadedness, fatigue, blurred vision, unsteadiness, or moments when you feel as though you might lose your balance. Even if these symptoms seem minor, they may provide valuable clues about how your body is responding to blood pressure changes or medications. Remember, blood pressure management is not only about numbers, it is also about how you feel and function in everyday life. Third, bring a complete list of medications and supplements. This includes prescription medications, over-the-counter products, vitamins, minerals, and herbal supplements. Many people are surprised to learn that certain products can influence blood pressure directly or interact with medications. Having an accurate list helps your healthcare provider evaluate your treatment plan more effectively and identify potential concerns. Fourth, ask your healthcare provider whether measuring blood pressure while both seated and standing may be appropriate for you. For some older adults, this can help identify a condition known as orthostatic hypotension. A person may have acceptable blood pressure while sitting, yet experience a significant drop after standing. Because this condition can contribute to dizziness and falls, identifying it may be an important part of maintaining safety and independence. And fifth, prepare questions before your appointment. Many people think of important questions only after they have returned home. Consider writing them down in advance. You might ask about your blood pressure goals, possible medication side effects, home monitoring techniques, or symptoms that concern you. The more information your healthcare provider has and the more questions you're able to discuss, the more personalized your care can become. Ultimately, the goal is not simply to achieve a specific blood pressure number. The goal is to support long-term health, maintain physical function, reduce cardiovascular risk, and help you continue enjoying daily life with confidence and independence.
So, what is the real ideal blood pressure after 60? As we've seen, the answer is not a single universal number. There is no one-size-fits-all target that works perfectly for every older adult. Research has shown that managing blood pressure can play an important role in reducing cardiovascular risk, but aging also brings new considerations that should never be ignored. Arterial stiffness, isolated systolic hypertension, the J-curve phenomenon, orthostatic hypotension, fall risk, medication effects, and overall physical function. All of these factors can influence what blood pressure management should look like for an individual. Perhaps the most important takeaway from today's discussion is this: don't focus only on the numbers. Pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to your balance, your energy level, your mobility,
and any symptoms that may appear during daily activities. Because healthy aging is about much more than achieving a specific reading on a blood pressure monitor. It is about protecting your heart, supporting healthy circulation, maintaining independence, and preserving your quality of life for as many years as possible. If you are over 60, consider taking a few minutes this week to review your recent blood pressure readings. Keep a simple record, write down any symptoms you may have experienced, and bring that information with you to your next healthcare appointment. Small steps like these can lead to more informed conversations and more personalized care. And if today's video helped you better understand blood pressure after 60, please take a moment to share it with a friend, a spouse, a sibling, or a family member who may benefit from this information. You never know who might need to hear it. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Have you noticed changes in your blood pressure as you've gotten older? Do you regularly monitor your blood pressure at home? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story may help someone else who is facing similar questions. And if you enjoy evidence-based health information designed specifically for older adults, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.